All right, you guys will have to excuse my voice. I know it doesn't sound completely normal. We were struggling a little bit on being sick, but I feel great now. We are making a creamy Parmesan pesto skillet. All of these flavors, I mean, I have had this recipe saved and been so excited about it because everything about this screams things that my family are gonna love. All right, we're gonna make up the rub for this chicken. We've got some basil pesto right here. You can obviously make your own pesto if you want, but I went the convenient route and just bought it. So we need about 3 tablespoons here in this bowl. Okay, we need a little bit of oil, although this pesto has a lot of oil in it, so it calls for about a tablespoon, but I went a little less because there was already a lot in there. All right, we've got some Parmesan cheese. We need about 2 tablespoons. This is freshly shredded. I'm gonna start combining this. Let's add in some Dijon mustard. And for this, we're gonna do about a tablespoon. This is a new one, so open that up. We need about a teaspoon of honey. And when it comes to a marinade like this or a rub, I typically don't measure. It's one of those things where if you want it to be exact, that's totally fine. But it's just gonna help to bring out the flavors of that chicken. It's just going to flavor it up. So once you throw it in the pan, it's gonna have all of this really good stuff on it. Add a pinch of salt. Now you could marinate your chicken in a little bag or something. I actually don't have one right now. We're out of bags. So we're gonna use this baking dish, which is the perfect size for this chicken. All right, we have these boneless, skinless chicken breasts that we've been using from Good Chop. They're perfect because they're not those huge chicken breasts that you feel like you have to cut in half. I love the size of these. All right, so I'm gonna take 2 of them. Actually, before I do that, let's just take a little bit of our pesto mixture. I mean, a little bit, really not much at all. I'm gonna spread it along the bottom here just to make sure we get a little bit of this rub on each piece. I'm gonna lay that down. Again, take a little bit of that rub and just spread that around on this chicken breast. And then we're just gonna keep layering. And obviously, like I said, you can do this in a baggie if you want to. Like I said, I'm out of the size baggies that would fit these chicken breasts. So that is why I am just choosing to marinate them this way. Now you can marinate them for 30 minutes while you're getting everything else prepped and ready for this recipe. You can marinate them overnight in the refrigerator for up to 8 hours if you'd like to do that. So it really just depends on the amount of time that you have for this recipe. All right, now while that marinates, I can get everything else ready for this recipe. There's not a whole lot of chopping to do, which is fantastic. The only thing that I need to do is prep some asparagus. If you're gonna use mushrooms and peas, then you can get those out and ready as well. All right, now for my asparagus, what I have found is if you just snap them where they naturally snap, so for instance, bend, wherever it naturally snaps, that's gonna be the best asparagus. So I just bend them, and wherever it naturally snaps, you're good to go. Obviously, you can eat the entire thing. It's just that the closer you get to the end, the more tough it's gonna be. Let me know in the comments, are you an asparagus fan? Do you prefer not to eat it? Is that something that you regularly have in your household? How do you feel about it? Because I do feel like it's one of those things where you either love it or you're not a fan at all. We really like it. Actually, this is the 2nd time this week we've had asparagus. It's a pretty common green in our household. All right, now for these pieces, we're going to cut them into 1-inch pieces. They don't have to be perfect, but just around that, kind of like bite-size-ish. These are good to go. They will go in there as we're cooking. All right, we have 1 tablespoon of avocado oil. You can use olive oil if that's what you want. Let's turn our burner on and get this nice and heated so that we can saute up that chicken. We want our pan to be nice and hot so that when that chicken hits that oil, it starts to saute right away, and it's just gonna add such good flavor. So we do have it on a medium high. Take the chicken that we had in the, that we were marinating, and it's gonna go into the pan. Ooh, this is gonna crowd it a bit. Nice. All right, pour all that over the top. That is the good stuff right there. So we're just gonna cook it on 1 to 2 minutes on each side just to get that nice sear on it. I'm gonna be honest, because of the oil that you had in the mixture, you may not need to add any more oil to your pan, but after this step, there's another tablespoon of oil, so I think I'm gonna omit that one, so that way we don't have a lot of oil left. All right, this is really the color that you want. These didn't get quite as much color, but we'll make sure they get a good color on that other side. Now, normally when we do this, you guys know we don't really cook it all the way through, we're just searing it. But in this case, we actually are gonna cook the chicken all the way through. So we're gonna let this go for about 6 to 7 minutes. If I do feel like it's getting too much color on one side, I'll flip it again. Let's reduce our heat to a medium. To make sure we don't burn these, we just want them to cook all the way through. Okay, the chicken is fully cooked, so we're taking it out and just setting it on a plate. Let's add in 1 tablespoon of butter. And don't worry about any of the stuff at the bottom of your pan, that's all good. If it's really burnt, like there's a little bit over here that I would consider to be too burnt, you can pull that off, but honestly, anything that's at the bottom of your pan is really just gonna add good flavor. Now I'm gonna add in the asparagus and saute it. Just for about a minute, it's not gonna take very long. In this little bowl here, I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme, a little bit of salt, and some crushed red pepper flakes. We're gonna mix all of that in. Mix it all together. If you want to avoid the heat altogether, then you can just leave out the crushed red pepper flakes. That's completely fine. Oh, I lost a few there. Now I've got a tablespoon of flour. We're going to coat these. Just mix it all together. We have 2 cups of broth, but I separated them into 2 separate bowls. So we're gonna do one at a time and just scrape the bottom of the pan as we are cooking. Still on a medium heat. Now, like I said, I have another cup of broth. I have 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour, which is the same thing as cornstarch basically. So we're gonna mix that together. And we're gonna add this in as well. And then our heat, like I said, it's on a medium low. We're gonna crank it up just a bit. We wanna get, oh, it's already starting to simmer, so I probably won't even have to turn up the heat. Just pour that in. Now, bringing this to a simmer is gonna thicken up this sauce, which is what you want. Now, depending on the amount of brown bits that you had at the bottom of your skillet, yours might be a little lighter in color than mine, and that's totally fine. Either one is fine. You can see it's starting to take a little bit longer to come back together when you run your spoon or your spatula through, and that's letting you know it's starting to thicken up, which is really nice. This is gonna be a really good sauce. I have 1/4 cup of heavy cream. We're gonna add that in. We'll lighten it up a little bit. Stir all of that together. At this point, we're working with a really beautiful sauce. I do want it to thicken just ever so slightly more, so I'm gonna let it go about 1 more minute, maybe 2, and then it should be good for us to finish this up. All right, so I did just taste the sauce. I do feel like it needs a little bit of salt, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a pinch, maybe a 1/2 teaspoon or so. Okay, I have a 1/4 cup of pesto. Let's add this in and stir that around. At this point, my heat is pretty much on low. It's like right in between low and medium low. Got about a 1/3 cup of shredded Parmesan, and this is freshly shredded. We're gonna add this in, stir it all together. This is gonna be so good. All right, now we can take the chicken and just nestle that back in here until we're ready to eat so it stays nice and warm. We are gonna serve ours over rice. It's in the rice maker right now. I believe it is just finished. So we'll be ready to eat in just a minute here. I do not have a taste test for you. We sat down so quickly to eat dinner. Everybody was really hungry, but let me tell you, oh my goodness. You have to make this one. We all sat down at the dinner table and said, this might be one of the best flavored meals we've ever had. Fabulous, so incredibly delicious. I'm talking like bursting, every single bite, just bursting with flavor. So, so, so good. I cannot wait to make this one again. This is absolutely a best of, for sure. Love this one. You have to try it. We are making a one-pot skillet lasagna. It's overall got some really good ingredients in it. I love pasta. Now, obviously, if you're not a pasta fan, this one might not be for you, but I think it's delicious and it's pretty much all over on the stovetop. And bonus, I actually already have cooked ground beef. I made a little bit too much the other day, so we get to just use the ground beef that I made up. This is gonna come together so fast. Like I said, the beef is actually already cooked. We're just gonna do a little reheat on this before we get started. I am gonna add a little bit of oregano. I think that I did add oregano when I actually made this, so I'm not adding too much. I do wanna add just a touch of pepper, and then I also thought that I got out the onion powder. Let me grab that, just a touch. We don't need much. Also, the recipe calls for a pound of ground beef, but this is probably a little less than a pound. So I'm not concerned about it. It's gonna be fine. We'll just have a little bit less in there tonight. Now I have my own tomato sauce that I made up and just put in these cans. You don't have to do that, obviously. You can just buy tomato sauce or just add in your favorite marinara or whatever you wanna add in. I'm adding in this whole can here, and it's probably, I think these are 10 ounces. I also have a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes. I'm gonna add the whole thing in, and we're not draining these or anything, just add the can. This recipe is so easy. We need to add 2 cups of chicken broth. This is bone broth. You guys know I like to use that. All right, 2 cups. And let me just go ahead and splash myself while I'm at it. And you know what? For the other cup, we're gonna be using beef broth, which is totally fine because we have beef in there anyway. I am out of chicken broth. We need to order that. Okay, we are using bow tie noodles and I have about 8 ounces. It might be a little over 8. I just wanted to do a little more noodles since we are a little lower on the beef. And I'm gonna try and do this without splashing myself. Oh, success. Awesome. Stir all of this together. Now we need to bring this up to a simmer so that these noodles can start cooking. So I'm gonna turn my heat up and just let this rock and roll. Now obviously if you do not have some pre-cooked ground beef, you're gonna wanna cook that. You're gonna wanna saute a pound of ground beef and add in things like your minced garlic and your favorite spices so that you get really good flavor here. We've got the boil, so let's turn our heat down. I'm going medium-low here. Go ahead and put our lid on, and this is gonna cook for about 15 minutes or so until those noodles are nice and tender. Okay, let's take the lid off. Oh man, perfectly cooked noodles. Look at that. Ooh, that is hot. Okay, now we've got to add a couple things. I'm gonna turn my heat all the way off. I'm adding in about 2/3 cup of cottage cheese. This is a low-fat cottage cheese. You can use no fat if you want, and this is gonna finish this one off. I've also got some freshly shredded mozzarella. Let's add in, I don't know, it's probably about a cup. Let's just add in this whole thing. And we'll start to stir all of that together. I think I'm out of parsley, which really stinks because y'all know this would look really pretty with some parsley on it. Okay, let's just cover this, let the cheese melt for just a minute. It's still really hot, and then we can start to serve. All right, give this a try and then serve everybody. Woo! Check out that cheese. Really good. Tastes like lasagna. I think you could even add more cottage cheese, honestly. I'm not sure I did quite 2/3 of a cup, but it tastes like lasagna, but maybe a skinnier version, sort of, to a degree. Really easy, especially because it was in one pot. I love that. You guys know I love one pot meals. Makes things so easy to clean up after dinner. I love ones that pack a punch, really good flavor. This is a great one. Tonight for dinner, we are making a one-pot gnocchi chicken pot pie. My daughter and I are actually gonna be working on this together. She already set out all of the ingredients that we need, and everything else is gonna happen over on the stovetop, so let's move over there and get this thing started. Okay, the first thing we need to do is turn that heat on to medium-high and make sure that that starts to get hot. We're using a large pot, so you need a Dutch oven, large pot, something like that you can fit a good amount of stuff into. Let's add 4 tablespoons of butter to this pot and let that melt. And then we have some vegetables that we're gonna add in for sauteing as well. Okay, we're gonna start adding those vegetables. The butter's still melting, but it will be fine. So we have some mushrooms and some sliced carrots to be added in. This is about a half cup or so of carrots, and then what is it, 4 ounces?
Yes, 4 ounces.
4 ounces of mushrooms. We are not cutting ours up as far as the mushrooms go because my daughter actually does not like mushrooms, but she'll pick them out. So we just leave them big enough that she can easily just pick them out. Now, normally a pot pie also gets celery and peas. My husband really does not like peas at all and does not love celery. So instead, for more color, we've got some diced red bell pepper that we're gonna add in. This is probably a little over a 1/4 cup. And I had diced this the other day, actually for a different recipe, but it's fine. We're gonna go ahead and just use them in here. And then I've got some green bell pepper, also diced. We're gonna use those as well. And you know what? I have another green bell pepper. I may dice just a little bit more up really quick when my daughter stirs the vegetable mixture. We just need to let these saute for 3 to 4 minutes or so until everything starts to soften up. And while they are cooking, I'm gonna add in some Kevin's all-purpose seasoning. We don't need to measure. You can also just use salt and pepper. All right, so let's just continue to let these vegetables soften up in the pot here. Okay, our vegetables are getting nice and tender. Looking really good. We have about 2 cloves of garlic that needed to be added in, and we'll saute all of that together. And just a pinch of dried thyme. Smells really good. It's gonna be really fragrant. You want that garlic to become very fragrant, but we don't wanna burn it either. We have 3 tablespoons of flour. I'm gonna start sprinkling this over the vegetables and coating the vegetables with this flour. This is just gonna help everything thicken up once we make our sauce. So we're going to make sure the flour sautés a bit. We are gonna be using some chicken bone broth. So we are going to slowly add in our chicken broth. We have 2 cups of this. So you're gonna slow, add maybe about a 1/4 cup or so to start, mix it together, then add a little bit more. And you just do that. That way you avoid clumps of flour. Our heat is currently medium to medium high. Keep adding. It's already thickening up. So we have 1 cup of milk. Stir in that 1 cup of milk. Yeah, all of it, that's fine. Okay, we do want this mixture to come up to a light boil, simmer, just starting to bubble a little bit. So I'm gonna crank my heat up just for a minute to get that going. Now we are going to be using mini gnocchi. I happened to find this today. I really don't think that it matters if you're using mini, but we like a lot of gnocchi. In fact, I got 2 boxes of this. We might even be adding more. Okay, you can see we've got a bubble here. Turning it down so we're closer to medium. Let's add in those gnocchi. Let's add in the gnocchi. Okay, we're gonna let these cook for 5 to 6 minutes or so. making sure we're still at a medium just so we have a bit of a simmer. Now obviously you can make these separately in some boiling water and you could put them in here, but you will need to use less broth and milk for the sauce because it's not gonna reduce quite a bit because some of it is going to cook into that gnocchi. So just, you know, then it's not a one pot meal, but you can also do it separately. I did decide that I wanted to make sure we had enough and some leftovers as well for lunches. So I added some more gnocchi and a little bit more of the broth, the bone broth. So just playing around with the recipe a little bit. As it's cooking, I have some cooked and shredded chicken. I did a combination of chicken breasts and chicken thighs. We need overall about a cup. I'm probably gonna go more like a cup and a half-ish, maybe even a little more. And then the other part is gonna be for another recipe that we're gonna make. Still cooking that gnocchi, but I just wanted to get that chicken in there so that it could warm back up. All that I did to cook that chicken was boil and shred. And if you have a KitchenAid mixer, it will shred your chicken up so fast. This is gonna be very gnocchi heavy. So if you don't like a lot of gnocchi, I would say maybe not the second package, but we love gnocchi. I would say if I had to guess what would be the perfect amount, about 20 ounces of gnocchi would be perfect. This is probably closer to 30. Actually, it is closer to 30, I know that for sure. All right, I had to test a gnocchi to see if it was done, and it is. Let's turn off our heat, give it a quick stir here. It looks delicious. I've already tasted the gnocchi to make sure that it was cooked all the way. This is really hot. That's really good. It's really hearty, tastes like home, like just a good home cooked meal. Tons of good flavor in here. If you're not using gnocchi, guys, it's very, very good. It's made from potato and flour. There is gluten-free options available as well, but I definitely suggest making this one, and it doesn't get better than it all being in one pot. Our verse today comes from Matthew 6:10. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you need more one pot inspiration, I have several more of these here on my channel. Recipes that have less dishes, less time in the kitchen, but are so delicious and your family is going to absolutely love them. If you're new here, I would love if you'd subscribe and stick around. And if you need more inspiration, I highly suggest you check out the video that I have right above. Have a great week.